Hello and welcome back to day 3 of our virtual art camp through Samson Arts Council in Clinton, North Carolina. Today, we're going to take the Impressionism style we talked about on day 1 with our artist study about Claude Monet, and we are going to create our very own sailboat collage. This project will be broken up into 2 parts. Day 3, we will work on our background of our picture, and day 4, we're going to create our sailboats and any extra details. Let's go ahead and get started. So today, for our project, we're going to need 3 different items from our kit. We're going to need the glue stick, we'll need the colorful tissue paper, and then we're actually going to take 2 pieces of paper from our kit. One, we're going to use the whole sheet. This is going to be the base of our picture today. The second, I actually took 1 piece of paper out and cut it vertically right down the center to split the paper in half. So we only need half of that paper today for the water. The other half I'm going to actually save for tomorrow, and we'll use that to put together our sailboats. So I'm going to set that aside. And I'm going to move my extra sheet over because we're going to start with our sky first. I have decided that I am going to turn my paper horizontally. So you can turn your paper short and wide horizontal. You may want to turn your paper vertically today, tall and skinny. The reason I chose horizontal is because it's going to give me more of a wider space for my water at the bottom to fit my sailboats on there. So I chose to go horizontally. Now for the sky, we're going to do the same types of warm colors that we used yesterday for your sunset when we did the palm trees, except today we're going to use tissue paper. You can cut the paper with scissors if you'd like, but in order for us to sort of get that choppy, colorful look and use that impressionist style that we saw with Claude Monet, I'm actually going to tear these pieces today. So what I'm really just going to start doing is just tearing some strips of paper in each color. So I'll tear the pink, I've got some red, you may have orange in your kit or yellow, but I want you to go ahead and just tear those papers into some strips. So what I've done is I've torn those pieces of tissue paper into strips and I've kind of sorted them by color. And I'm going to do a collage of the tissue paper on the top half of my paper today. So the top half is going to be our sunset and the bottom half will be our water. So for the sunset, what I like to do is just sort of start with a line of glue. Just going to go right across the top here. And you can really mix the tissue paper any way you'd like. I'm going to try to sort of go along with the same flow that we did yesterday, where we did the pink that sort of mixed in with the red, that mixed in with the yellow. So I'm just adding these little strips in to make that stripe, just like we did with the chalk yesterday, except I'm doing it collage style with the tissue paper. And a little bit more glue, and I'll fill in the rest of my pink stripe. Okay. Now you may or may not use all of the tissue paper. For your sunset, you may find that you have little cracks or spaces in between your colors, and maybe you just want to come and fill those in with a smaller piece on top. But we definitely want to stick with that collage style. We don't just want to stick one huge piece right on top of the paper. Okay, so now I did a pretty nice strip of the pink there. I'm going to go ahead and put another stripe of glue. I might even put a little bit of the glue on top of the pink tissue paper because now I'm going to blend in the red. So using that red tissue paper, I'm going to go ahead and stick that on top. And it's okay if your strips are a little bit smaller than mine. You may need to tear some pieces so that they fit into a certain spot. I tell my students when we're doing collage art that a lot of times it's like you're creating your own puzzle with your materials. So you can tear a piece to fit perfectly into a space where you need it to. Or you may even already have a piece that fits. So I'm going to add one more layer of the red tissue paper. Use some of these thinner pieces. Okay, fill that in. And then I'll move on to the yellow. Again, putting a little stripe of that glue kind of right on top of the red. Just to overlap the colors. And I've seen some designs where they actually take, actually I'm going to pull this up, finish this row up here, where they take the pieces and put them in smaller pieces. They rip them into smaller pieces and kind of mix all of the colors together too. So it doesn't have to be stripes of color. It could just be all different kinds of pieces kind of mixed all together to make your sunset, just as long as you're using those warm colors. All right, I'm going to finish up down here with my light yellow. One more little spot here. Put that in, and we'll let it dry. Okay, I'm going to set that aside to let it dry, and then we're going to start working on that half sheet of paper to make our water. Okay, so this is where we're going to get a little bit messy, and I forgot to mention there's two other items we're going to need today. We are going to be using your chalk pastels to create the water, so we need you to pull out your chalk pastels. We're looking for cool colors, so really I'm actually looking for a lot of blues. I may mix in a little bit of purple, and you might even have some greens that you'd like to use for that ocean water. I also grabbed that extra tool we talked about yesterday, a paper towel from my kitchen. I just sort of cut it into squares to use for spreading the chalk. Again, if you don't have paper towels, you could use tissue, a napkin, or a cloth that you don't mind getting a little bit dirty. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just like yesterday, I'm going to be blending these colors together, but I'm not going to worry so much about keeping stripes on the paper. So I'm going to start with a light blue, and I might actually kind of create sort of wavy lines with my chalk. And remember yesterday we said it's easier to get that smooth look if you don't hold the chalk straight up and down. You want to turn it on its side and rub the chalk onto the paper. So let me go ahead and grab a little bit of a darker blue right here, turning it on its side. I'm just kind of pinching and rubbing that. I just sort of follow the same curved lines I started with, just adding another layer in there. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a dark purple, mix that up here at the top. And then you, like I said, have lots of different color choices in your kits this week. I really like this kind of a sea green color, bluish, almost turquoise. I'm going to take that and spread that in those last little empty spaces that I have down here. Okay, so I filled in the whole paper with color using those cool colors, blues, purples, a little bit of the green. And now, just like we did for your palm trees, I'm going to take that paper towel. You can fold it, you can kind of wrap it around your fingers, whatever's easiest for you. And I'm going to take that paper, and instead of just going straight across like I did yesterday for my stripes, I'm going to kind of follow the waves on my paper. So you can start up at the top and move down, or start at the bottom and move upwards. But I'm just smoothing out that color to give it that nice flowy look. Again, if you see some spots that are a little bit lighter and you want to come in and add another layer to darken it up, you can. I don't mind a lot of white poking through. For this part of my project, because those waves are going to be cresting, and as the water crashes, we kind of get that white color inside the waves too. Okay, so we have spread out all of the color on our paper. It looks pretty good to me. I feel like this is going to be the perfect blend for my waves. And now we're going to move on to the next part, where we use collage art to put this on for our water. Okay, we're back for the last part of our second project today. The last part today that we're going to do is we're going to add those the waves at the bottom of our paper. We've given the top some time to dry. If I need to go back after my picture is dried and maybe glue down some pieces that might be sticking up, I can always come in and add an extra bit of glue and stick that down. The glue that we've given you in your kit will dry clear, so don't worry if you see a little bit of that purple from the glue popping through. As that dries, you won't be able to see it. Okay, now sky is done. We need to do the water. I am going to do the same process that I did with my collaging that I did with the tissue paper, using my chalk pastel paper that I just created. What you're actually going to do is you're going to tear this into strips. So I just very slowly tear strips of paper, starting at the end, coming across, and I just sort of lift up, because I actually want to tear the paper in a way that it almost splits the paper in half as it pulls apart. Because what you get is this really cool little strip of white at the top, which makes it look like the crest of the wave as it's curling over. So sometimes kids get a little bit nervous when they start to tear. They think the edges should look like this, where you don't see the white, but really we're trying to create that effect today with the white paper popping through to show the crest of the waves. So I'm going to keep going, tearing those strips, and it's okay if you make some that are a little bit shorter or longer. I could even tear them a little bit so that they or in smaller pieces. You could sort of tear your paper in a way that it creates the waves that go up and down. That's a cool texture to the waves you could add there. And I'll set those aside so that I can start building my waves on my paper. So just like before, except this time I'm going to start at the bottom. Well, actually, let's start up here. Let's start at the bottom of our sky. Then that way we can sort of overlap our waves. Yes, we're going to start right underneath the yellow tissue paper, and I'm going to go right over top like I did before. when I was adding the sky. Overlap a little bit with the glue and then create that stripe. And then I'm gonna come down here and pull out. I'm gonna start with my bigger pieces, and I'm just gonna lay that on top. Now be careful as you press down, you don't want to smudge the chalk too much. Okay, add a little piece over here. Okay, and you might need, since this is a thicker paper, to add extra glue on the edges. And it's okay if you want to let the centerpiece dry and come back later and add more glue on the edges. Overlap with the glue again. Creating another stripe. And you may or may not use all of the pieces that you created. And I definitely like to make sure that I overlap these so it looks like the waves are kind of rolling across the ocean. Don't worry if you come off the edge of your base paper. You can always trim the edges later. I'm gonna put, let's see, I think I might try to match up this wave here. Again, just, you can use scissors to trim pieces if you need to. Bring this one underneath. Finish off that wave. Okay, and then I'll add my last strip of glue. Little extra waves just to fill in those puzzle pieces that are left behind. Now it's looking as though I may have a little extra piece of white at the bottom of my paper. I'm just going to trim that off at the end. You may or may not have enough paper that you can cover that right over with yours. Okay. Add that on. And now I have the waves of my water. I even put a little extra piece up here. Add a little extra crest in there. Okay. And now I've finished the waves of my water. Now we're going to let this dry and we're going to stop here for today. Remember, this is a 2-day project. So tomorrow we will pick up with our sailboats. We're going to be creating our sailboats and then using that collage technique to add them into our pictures. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.